Everyone, welcome. My guest today is Georgia Gray. She is the founder of WBH Nutrition Company. She's a certified holistic health coach, specializing in autoimmune nutrition. Georgia sent her debilitating autoimmune disease symptoms into remission through the healing power of food and self-care. She passionately helps her clients get their life back and feel their best through their individualized holistic nutrition coaching that she works with them in doing. And Georgia and I met at Nurture, which is Denver's newest, greatest place. It's a well-care marketplace is how they define it. And we both work out of there. And I bring people on once or twice, well, every other week, sometimes, whatever. Often, I like to bring experts on board to share their information and expertise with my audience and with my clients. Because a lot of what I do as a recovery coach and a lifestyle consultant is refer my clients to people that have expertise in the areas that they need. And Georgia is one of those people for me. A lot of people have autoimmune disorders these days and different stuff involving inflammation and nutrition, gut health. And Georgia is an expert in that. And I wanted her to come on today and talk to us about these things, which I feel like autoimmune disease and inflammation are so common that the words have almost lost their power. It's almost kind of like stress. Like everybody just needs to watch their stress and they need to, you have inflammation. It's almost just like this kind of blanket diagnosis. So people don't take it as seriously or don't investigate fully as to what it is. So I really want you to go into that today and speak to all of it. But first of all, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself? I gave everybody that brief introduction, but do you want to go a little bit more into your personal story?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me. So, yeah, my personal story, it really, sorry, I'm just propping this up. It really is, why I do what I do. So when I was, a senior in college, I started to get really bad migraines and joint pain and acid reflux. And I was always an athlete and wasn't able to run or really move because of something going on. And long story short, I figured out that I had celiac disease, and it kind of launched me into this just passion for nutrition and food. And I would come home, I used to be a teacher, and so I would come home every day after teaching and I would read books and watch documentaries and listen to podcasts and just teach myself how to cook and try to figure out as many ways as I could to learn more and more about it. And then I found my nutrition school. And, figured if I'm already doing this on my own anyway, I might as well get a degree. So I did my nutrition program, and I was living in Texas at the time. I grew up here in Denver, and then I moved back to Denver. And when I moved back, it was kind of this whole slew of health issues again. So once I figured out I was celiac and went gluten-free, I never had a migraine again. I never struggled with acid reflux again. But then I moved back to Denver, and all of a sudden I was having just kind of weird symptoms that didn't seem to be related. So the first thing that really went was my memory. I was starting to have really bad memory loss. I was starting to have, issues at work where I wasn't remembering meetings and things like that. Word recall, really bad brain fog. And then on top of this, just a lot of physical pain in my joints. My left pinky at the time, it would fluctuate in swelling, and my hands and fingers and joints were at the point where I couldn't, bend them and move. And I just, again, was in so much pain. And it really was, a year of misdiagnoses and, a million doctors, and no one could figure out what was wrong with me. They thought I had rheumatoid arthritis. That's still something that's kind of up in the air. And anyway, I went to a homeopathic doctor, and he was like, I just have this kind of gut feeling that you have Lyme disease. And, glad he listened to that feeling and tested me for Lyme. And then, from there had more testing and blood tests and things like that to really confirm it. But then had about 4 years after that diagnosis, where I just was so sick, and, same thing, all of these issues going on. And I had finished my nutrition school, but I realized, if I didn't feel well, I wasn't in a place where I could be helping other people. And so I really dug into the nutrition behind autoimmune disease, the complexities of Lyme. And then on top of it, of what I love being holistic is it's not just about the food. So, figuring out how, besides food, can I find these ways to take care of myself and heal my body? And then came out of the woods from all of that, and just had this realization of kind of what you were saying earlier, of so many people are so sick with autoimmunity and Lyme and all of these things. And you get a diagnosis, and then you're just kind of thrown to the wolves, and it's good luck, maybe take this immunosuppressant drug, and that's it. And so on my journey, I've fortunately have never had to take immunosuppressant drugs, because I've really been able to manage all of my symptoms with food and with taking care of myself and detoxing my body. And so that journey is, again, what launched me to start my business, because I wanted to take what I took in years and condense that to then help people heal and feel better from these things, and truly get their life back. So that's how my business started. And it's a really great thing and such an honor to help just people feel well again with food. So that's a bit of my story.
Well, and especially when they have, like you, so many people have the experience of going to, whatever type of doctor, and then just being, like you said, sent out to the wolves.
Yeah.
And I mean, just in the past six months, you included, now that's 3 people in my life now who have been diagnosed, or their symptoms relate to or are evident of having Lyme disease. Really, have you all had like a tick at some point in your life? Like it's becoming so prevalent and so common. It's like, wow, something big is going on, that so many people are having Lyme disease, which is fascinating, which could probably be a whole different conversation. But you, and then my guest last week, Jessica Press, and a dear friend of mine, a few different people that I have had on come from your same experience of being sent out with just drugs and no other direction, and have had to learn, educate themselves, and in that have overcome all of these things. So, it's just another testament to like the power that's actually out there in alternative medicine, and like in nutrition, honestly, predominantly, in overcoming a lot of these issues. So I just think it's fascinating. And I think when people hear that there's, you're just going to have to deal with this for life, you're going to be on drugs forever, there's really nothing more we can do, I think we should all know that that's not the truth. From that person, that's what they know, that's the best they've got. But there's so many people like you now who have had experience and have the training to actually help them overcome and be symptom free and all of that. So awesome. So good for you. I'm so happy for you that you don't feel shitty anymore.
It's nice. And I just to kind of echo what you were saying too, I think that is often such the hurdle with autoimmunity, is that the first thing you're told when you're diagnosed is your body's attacking itself, and this will never go away. And so again, that's what I love about being holistic, is that it's not, there's so much emotion tied to these disorders too. So I always, like, one of the first thing I say to my autoimmune clients is like, okay, we have got to shift our mindset here. Your body is not attacking itself.
Yeah, that verbiage is just not helpful.
It's not helpful. And we can't have that fear of this will never go away, this will never get better. And so I really encourage people to reframe that of, my body's working for me, not against me. It's not attacking myself. I am healing. Um, and again, it's kind of this this balance where it's like, we can't think about it all the time and let it run our life, but then you also have to acknowledge, okay, I have these conditions and I have to take care of myself in a certain way, and then kind of meet in the middle there and not have, again, that fear of like, this is never going to go away, I'm never going to get better, because it's really harmful. And I find that, again, we can eat the way we need to eat with these conditions, but if we don't shift that mindset, we'll never get better.
Yeah, I mean, if you really subscribe to that belief that your body is your enemy, that's so sad. It's such a sad, sad state of existence.
Totally.
And it's really more like, no, there's something going on and your body is responding this way, period. And now let's figure out how to get it to respond in a different way.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and I've heard so many people say that, and it's just like, God, talk about, becoming hopeless instantly.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Yeah. Well, so how about, why don't we go right into now, like exactly what autoimmune disease is?
Yeah, so it's a response in the body of basically, and again, that's where I have that mindset shift of reframing it, but where your body is kind of confused with attacking, I don't like that verbiage, but for the sake of explaining, attacking certain antibodies that then create inflammation and pain within the body. There are hundreds of different types of autoimmune disorders. And then there's also now too, they're labeling autoimmunity more as even a spectrum now, because there are some people that you can't diagnose them in any specific disorder. And so it's just somewhere on this autoimmune spectrum. I think though, at the end of the day too, like, it doesn't always, of course there's like certain adjustments, but it always doesn't, for me, like, it's all just coming back to the gut. So if you're autoimmune, your gut, which is just a loose term for all your digestive organs, is out of whack. So that's where 70 to 90% of our immune system lies. And so again, when our digestive organs are compromised, that's what then seeps into the bloodstream and creates inflammation, which I like to think of it as like little fires in your body. So headaches, joint pain, acid reflux, and then that compromised gut is then what creates these autoimmune conditions. And there's also genetics and environmental factors and toxins, and it's a lot of complexity to it. But the thing that all autoimmune diseases have in common, no matter which one it is that your gut is out of whack.
Is that common knowledge? I don't know if that's common knowledge, that autoimmunity is like almost 100%, well, like you said, 70 to 90% gut.
Yeah, it's all your gut. It's definitely not something that you're a rheumatologist is going to sit down and tell you that this is a gut issue.
And if they're not and it's also not classified as like a blood disease or right?
Well, it depends on the disorder. So some of them, it can show up in your blood, where there are certain markers of that inflammatory response. So you can, depending on the autoimmune disease, you can have some factors in your blood that show you.
Okay, so I want to come back to talking specifically about maybe a few different types of autoimmune diseases, like maybe like the most prevalent ones. But let's talk a little bit more about inflammation, because that sounds like it's like the root of most things. So it's little fires in the body, which I know inflammation initially when it starts is actually a helpful response. Like it's right. The body's natural, tell me if this is right, kind of like indicator. It's like it's going to show pain somewhere so that you see and feel pain somewhere and address that thing. But when it doesn't get addressed over time, that fire continues to burn, ruins tissues, and then it's going to compromise and affect other areas. And then it's just kind of like a train wreck.
Yes, exactly. And I think what's important with inflammation too is that even if you're not autoimmune right now or have a diagnosis right now, at some level, we all experience this inflammation in our body. And so it's really important to do certain things that keep our gut healthy to prevent something happening long term. I kind of use the analogy a lot of times where it's like, think of when you get a nail in your tire and it's fine for a while, you can still drive, but then over time, all of a sudden you're driving and it just pops. So that's kind of how I also think about immunity too, where it's, I was celiac. I didn't know until I was 21, ate gluten for 21 years, was okay for, 20 of them. And then all of a sudden you go over the waterfall, and you're kind of looking around of how did I get here? So
in hindsight, can you reflect now on symptoms that if you were more aware of things, you could have seen the symptoms showing up like from like early years?
yeah, definitely. I mean, as a kid, I just, a lot of it, again, back to the gut part of, I was really skinny and like really scrawny. And I think a lot of that too, I wasn't absorbing, nutrients like maybe I could have or should have. And then, yeah, it just, once I was in my 20s, it just all exploded and
the tire popped.
Yeah, exactly. Tire popped.
So inflammation, it's basically like, can you describe like your gut? What does your gut look like and what is it doing, all those different organs when they're inflamed?
Yeah, for sure. So again, 70 to 90% of our immune systems are all in our gut. So you can imagine when that's compromised, that's what's causing these huge range of health issues. If you take that out of your body and stretch it out, it's the size of a tennis court. So again, there's so much going on in our microbiome. And I like to think of it too of like the consistency of a cheesecloth where, there are certain things, and I have a really cool graphic too I can share with you that you could maybe post that I think explains this really well.
Okay.
So it's like, certain things should be kind of seeping through our guts or that cheesecloth. And then over years of kind of back to that tire thing of eating gluten, environmental toxins, antibiotic overload, mold, things like that come into our system, our gut gets compromised and it creates these literal holes in our gut. And then that's where inflammation occurs. So it then seeps through those little holes in your gut into your bloodstream, which then is causing the headache, the joint pain, the acid reflux. So it's all beginning there. But
You just have a bunch of stuff in your bloodstream that shouldn't be there.
Exactly. Yeah. But the good news too, and that I hope can be, reassuring for people is most of, my initial calls with people, it seems like we have all of these really seemingly random symptoms of like, my hormones are out of whack. I have a headache. I have joint pain. I have this, I have that. And again, even though they seem like all these separate issues, it's all actually, again, back to our gut. So I always tell people like, I know it feels overwhelming that you have all of these things going on, but the good news is that once we can heal up your gut and we can make you feel better. And so all of these things that seemed so disconnected are actually connected.
That is like a huge relief, right? And it just, I studied Ayurveda for a period of time and I still study and practice that, but that's the Indian science of lifestyle and nutrition and herbs and all that kind of stuff. Right. And basically, it all goes back to the gut. They talk a lot about poop in Ayurveda for sure too, because that's an indicator of what's working and what's not, honestly, as you know. But if I feel like if that's another thing when it doesn't sink into our collective consciousness, the gut and what we eat, how we eat and how it functions is the basic, this is where almost all disease starts. And that's what they teach in Ayurveda is that all disease, well, they talk about a lot of it coming from the mind, but physically, as far as like the organs and the systems, it comes from the gut. So if everybody could have a Georgia Gray in their life, if everybody could have, like devote a solid, however, year or whatever it's going to take for them to get their gut health in order, so much of our future lives won't have to be spent dealing with health issues.
Yeah.
but it's hard for, I think our society to really understand and believe and hear because of our conditioning of just like, Western medicine and fragmented stuff, like a migraine is this and whatever. It's hard for people to understand that train of thought, that true, where it truly all comes from. And, we're in this disease medical sort of conditioning that doesn't have enough emphasis on gut health. I mean, it just needs to become our norm. It needs to be like a national education, priority.
Mm-hmm.
Like the food pyramid, which was shit, which got us all so unhealthy.
Right.
We need to undo that. And like, it just needs to be common knowledge that we all need healthy guts, and we will all be so much healthier.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's all coming back to that. And it's kind of one of those things that's like, you don't know it until you know it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most of us need a crisis in order to make change.
Yeah.
But I mean, education in this area from a young age would help things considerably. But here we are. So, it is becoming wider, more broad knowledge to a lot of people, especially as we're, you and I are in the health and wellness world, and people are realizing that there are alternative medicine physicians that they can go to and that their friends have gone to, and that it works.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
I think little by little, that's how the word spreads, and that's how people get better. Do you want to talk a little bit about, I don't know, what are the top 3 most common autoimmune diseases that are out there these days? It used to be lupus. I used to hear a lot of people talk about lupus. Now it's Lyme. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Crohn's disease is something that affects a lot of people. MS, especially in Colorado, that's one that we have the highest rates of MS in Colorado. And then a lot with thyroids I see recently too. I'm trying to think of, there's so many.
MS is an autoimmune disease?
It is. So it's actually interesting. There's the angle of our sun in Colorado, we actually don't absorb vitamin D the way that we should and need to. And so that's another link with autoimmunity, is if you're autoimmune, you have a vitamin D deficiency. So I always encourage people, especially women, to make sure if you're in Colorado that you're on a D supplement. To make sure that you're getting the D that you need. But yeah, kind of back to your original question, I think the most common ones that I've been seeing recently are Crohn's, and then thyroids, especially amongst women. And then, Lyme. Lyme it's some people classify it as autoimmune, some people don't. Lyme also mimics other autoimmune diseases and can create autoimmune diseases. So that's kind of, again, like it could be another hour discussion. It can kind of be its own bucket too. But I would say those are the kind of most common ones that I've been seeing.
Okay, so let's say somebody comes in to see you. You want to kind of walk us through that whole experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Pick whichever one you like.
Yeah. So I work with people in 5 sessions just because I find that it doesn't work to just meet once. I'm sure you see the same thing with what you do too, where that change really happens over time. So the first session, I go through a really detailed health history where I'm just collecting their symptoms, what they're eating day to day, things like that. And then pretty quickly, I can usually tell what's causing, the upset stomach or the headaches, and I can address that. So then they leave that first session with a list of, here's what you can eat, here's what you can't eat, or I want you to avoid or have moderation. And then I have meal plans and recipes that go with that too. And again, it then is specific to the autoimmune disorder. So there's I like to take a bunch of different dietary theories, and then I've combined that to what I find is the best for autoimmune healing. So there's kind of that nut and bolts of this is kind of the way to eat for autoimmune healing. But if you have this autoimmune condition, we're going to eliminate that, or you might be okay with this. So it's, again, like there's that structure in place, but then depending on the person and the client and what's going on, I then adjust that based on what they need. Another one I'm thinking of that I see a lot of too is psoriasis and other skin issues. That's a really common one as well. So yeah, then they have that food plan, and, recipes to go with it. And then again, it's just, I really believe in my clients leading the session. So it's, I might recommend like a vitamin D supplement that I talked about, or maybe some mindfulness tips, or maybe some of those, emotional mindset shifts. And then from there, we meet either every week or every 2 weeks, and just check in to see how things are going, tweak things if we need to, and then have that combination of, here's, if you're having some sugar cravings, maybe add some more good fat to your lunch, or maybe you need more protein. So just, again, like based on whatever's going on, I'm then making 3 to 5 really tangible suggestions for them to work on in between the times we meet.
Do you have to do any blood work, or do you base a lot of your treatment on symptomology?
Mostly symptoms for me. A lot of people come to me with their testing. So whether that's like blood work or food sensitivities, that's something that I look through and can interpret. And then, as you know, so many great people in nurture, if I can't do it, there's someone who can.
Yeah, but you can really get that much information and direction, for you to give direction just on a really complete sort of history. And
Yeah.
'Cause, for example, when you said at the beginning you could pretty easily, quickly kind of figure out what's causing a headache and what's causing this, tell me how you do that. Like, can you give me an example?
Yeah. So, I think something that's really typical, if there's always like the main big ones that need to go. So
Okay.
whether it's whatever the autoimmune disease is, or even if it's someone, trying to lose weight, my number one thing is like, let's get you eating real food. If you can't pronounce an ingredient, that's not something that we need to be eating. So it always is starting there of, let's just get back to basics of real food. Avoiding processed food, avoiding sugar. So things like acid reflux, headaches, joint pain, my first instinct there would be gluten, of getting rid of gluten. Even, really bad stomach stuff, that would also be gluten. Skin, so eczema, psoriasis, acne, stomach, that would be my kind of red flag there, usually is dairy. And then again, from there, you can kind of get more complex and specific. So if a lot of times I have clients, most of my autoimmune people are people that are like, I've already gone gluten-free and I still feel like shit and I don't know what else to do. So that's a lot of who I see too. So then that's where, again, like depending on the autoimmune disease, we can tweak. So if someone's having really bad joint pain and they're already gluten and dairy free, going then grain free can be something that I find really, and avoiding legumes can help people kind of take their healing to that next step. Rashes, a lot of times that can be nightshades. And joint stuff can also be nightshades as well. So yeah, again, that's what I was kind of talking about with that. There's that like bigger framework of, you need to be off gluten, you need to be off dairy if you're autoimmune, but then those small tweaks of like, let's try eliminating this, let's try adding that, can depend on the person and what's going on.
And so how about, let's talk a little bit about the anti-inflammatory diets and foods like that, because that's another one of those things that's kind of like this broad thing that goes through in one ear and out the other with a lot of people, because it's just whatever. They don't take it as seriously as it should or could be taken in order to like really change how you feel. So what is an autoimmune? What is an anti-inflammatory diet?
I mean, there's a lot of different.
Or what are the foods? What are the foods doing? Just talk a little bit more about food and inflammation.
Yeah. So kind of to go back to that first, what we were talking about with gut health, of those like, literal holes I was mentioning in your gut. So things like your gluten, processed food, sugar, dairy, those are things that are going to make it worse. And so by pulling those out, then you're preventing further damage from occurring. And what gets then a little bit more complex is that there are foods that are inherently healthy foods and okay, but if you're someone that has a super damaged gut, it's going to make it worse. So something like a quinoa is a great whole grain. So many amazing, health benefits and nutrients and fiber. But if you're autoimmune and you have this compromised gut, quinoa is going to make you feel worse. So yeah, so I think again, like those biggest things are those like top kind of allergens to pull out, and then having a period of time where you're then avoiding, like the grains and nightshades and nuts and seeds, depending on the disease in person. So some of the, just to get specific of like the things that I look to and follow, or I kind of combine like an autoimmune protocol, a version of a keto diet. I also look into, the plant paradox is another that's really great. So again, there's all these kind of different, that's what I love about nutrition, is that there's so many different ways to do it. Like some people can feel great by trying this protocol and this one. So it's really what I like doing with people too, is figuring out, okay, what works for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Hey, I want to let everybody know, anybody who's on, if you want to send in any questions, you can just put them in the little comments box and or in that little question bubble. And Georgia can answer questions if you have any. Send them in anytime, and I'll just be on the lookout for those. So how quickly would you say like the majority of your clients see, shifts pretty darn quick?
Yeah. It's pretty cool to see how quickly you can feel better. And what I always say too, it's like, I don't want my clients to, once we finish our 5, like, I don't want you to need me anymore. Like, I want you to be able to like have the tools to go off and do it on your own and feel better. But yeah, I mean, I would say like even within a week or 2 weeks, like people can see some pretty quick, amazing results, and food has such that healing power.
Mm-hmm. I'll say those of you who are who know Georgia and don't know me, what I do as a recovery and life transition coach and lifestyle counselor is help people. So when you're on a recovery journey of any kind, whether, and I focus more on substance abuse and mental illness, but any major life transition that's destabilizing, that causes you to have to make radical changes in your life, it's overwhelming. It's just so many new decisions have to be made. Food obviously is the biggest one, and like exercise, and maybe you need therapy, maybe you need a counselor, self-care, stress management. There's all these new things that you may not have been doing before, and now like you really need to implement them into your life. And I help people kind of find the best people if they need them, and then the best tools and skills to incorporate practically and strategically. Because if you try and do too many things at once, number one, you can't really figure out what's working and what's not. Number two, a lot of people bite off more they can chew, because they're just so eager to, maybe they're excited about the world of holistic health and medicine, or for whatever reason, just trying to make too many major changes at once, and then their psyche freaks out eventually, or their biochemistry freaks out in the case of addiction and biochemistry, and actually like abstaining for something and restricting, keeping yourself from certain chemicals or whatever that your body clearly needs in some way. But if you haven't like replaced, it's a lot of replacement therapy. So if you're going to be making a change, what can you replace that change with? And so I help people basically go through that transition without being super, super overwhelmed. And I help direct them to the right people. And based on what like you would tell somebody to do, I sit down with them, and if making all of these changes with nutrition and lifestyle and all these other things is too much, we boil it down to like 2. Like what can you do consistently for the next 2 to 4 weeks, and then let's move on to the next thing. So it's just really nice to have a support, some reflection, and somebody just to kind of help keep you in check a little bit, so that you're not flailing. and that you don't basically let everything, you take on too much and then you get overwhelmed and then you throw it all to the curb and then you're worse off than you ever started. So I just kind of
Absolutely.
want to point that out. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, you deal with this, and this happens in the addiction world for sure. Okay, you got to get off gluten. I have to get off bread. What are you talking about? Like that, I cannot, people can't imagine having this comfort food no
Yeah.
longer in their life.
Mm-hmm.
And, that in, as far as like addiction goes, the bread links to opiate receptors. So, I mean, there is an emotional addiction there to a substance. So there's that you've got to deal with too. So I'm sure with some of your clients, may really need to have, a side expert, either, an addiction expert, biochemist, functional medicine, whomever, to try and help get some of their brain chemistry, give them a little bit of extra boost there,
Yes.
supplement wise. And do you do that too?
With supplements?
Yeah. Sorry, my
Yeah,
brain
I
keeps
mean, I
scrolling.
think you're fine. Yeah, I mean, just a couple things there too that I love that you're saying of, um, you know, it's again like that matter of meeting people where they are too.
Yeah.
So sometimes some of my changes with people are really, we can baby step, we handhold, and they're small. And then too, addressing and acknowledging the emotional part of it too, like especially the gluten part too, that can be something that I often encourage people, like you kind of need to mourn it. Like it's really hard to have to get rid of these comfort foods and these things that you love. But again, that's where that mindset shift comes into of like, okay, let's, we have to mourn this too, but now let's shift into, I'm healing my body, I'm not being restrictive. And it does take that village where, like you were saying, of different people within the wellness space that are all essential in that healing journey. And then supplements, yeah, I think, I'm in the camp where, like, when it comes to supplements, I advocate for us to try to get it from our food first and foremost. But inevitably, there are things that we need to, as they say, supplement with.
Yeah.
So like that vitamin D, like if someone's autoimmune, you're deficient in it, you need to be on a supplement. I'm very cautious with it though. And I would, encourage people who are sick and in a million different offices and appointments to just kind of, I think supplements can get very pushed and maybe more than you need. And there were definitely times in my journey where I was so sick, you'll do anything to feel better. And sometimes that looked like, unfortunately, some practitioners taking advantage of that and me walking away with hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So again, I kind of have a fine line there where there are certain things that I do think we need and that I recommend and I encourage. But I'm never going to be someone who is taking advantage of people because it's unfortunately a little too common, I found.
No, of course. And I would never expect you to be that type of practitioner. It's, my own personal experience. I've just had to, I've tried lots of different, been on different supplements, amino acids and vitamins and minerals and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes, yeah, you're on too many. You don't know what's working, what isn't. I'm a big fan of blood work to kind of just really kind of see, in data form where I'm off and stuff. So let me see if anybody's sent in any questions. What are some of like the main main questions people have for you, or maybe like the hardest things for people to change? Is it kind of like giving up just their comfort foods? Is that one of the main things? What are some other like really tricky things for people to really start working with you?
Yeah, good question. I think a lot of it is, that emotional part of kind of how long do I have to do this? What's this going to be like? Like that aspect can definitely be tough. And it's what's I think been great amongst some such not a great time is that we're home enough to focus on our health. But a lot of times it's eating out, or traveling and eating healthy, or being on the
Yeah.
go with work. So a lot of times that can be hard, of just feeling prepared. So that's something I like to help people do too, of like, okay, what are things that we can do where you're not reaching for something unhealthy because you have options already available for you.
So say somebody is traveling. What are some of your common tips when
Yeah.
somebody's not going to be eating at home?
Yeah. So I think, again, it kind of comes down to being prepared. So I have some, like finding snacks that you could maybe have on the go so that you're not going through a drive-through that can sustain you. So finding a snack that's high protein, low sugar, and then, maybe some good fat. So like nuts, and there's some great bars that you can get. Like I love the bulletproof bars, because they use like a collagen protein, really low sugar, but they actually taste good. So like having some bars on hand, maybe little packets of almond butter. So I think when it comes to on the go, it's just like a matter of being prepared.
That's a big thing. That's overwhelming. That was really overwhelming to me. It's just
Totally.
like, because it's so easy when your gut's not working right to crave the wrong things and to like, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's just, I wish I would have found you initially when I first started embarking on my journey, because it's just, it's hard.
It is. I think what
Really
can
hard.
also be helpful too, especially now that we're winter's approaching, is I really encourage people to make a lot of soups right now. That's a
Mm.
great way to just get tons of veggies and nutrients, and you can load up on garlic and onion, which is really good for your immune system. And then what I do is I'll make a huge batch and then take like individual mason jars and then just freeze them. And so then your whole freezer, you can kind of have some different options. So that can be a really good thing to have too, of like if you get home from work late one day, or you're not in the mood to cook, just kind of, again,
Mhm.
like having some of those things on hand can really help
Yeah.
set people up for success.
So a lot of your work, is it that kind of like really helping people come up with just a whole different way of, living in that regard? Is that a lot of
Yeah,
what you do?
for sure. Yeah. So that kind of planning aspect of things is so
Provide them with
important.
a bunch of recipes and all that kind of stuff, and just instruction.
Exactly.
Because some people maybe haven't like cooked
Yeah.
much
Yeah.
before seeing you.
Totally. Totally.
Um, all right. Is there anything else big that you want to speak to as far as any of these autoimmune, like what a little bit more about Lyme?
Yeah.
Can we talk specifically about Lyme for a moment?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot there for sure.
What are some of the main differences between that and, like some of the others?
Yeah. So, it's a tick-borne illness, and so that it's a bacterial infection in your body. Um, and then you can also have other co-infections, so that you can have Lyme, but then the ticks also carry other co-infections with it too. So it can, for lack of a better word, I mean, it just completely wreaks havoc on the body. And the strangest slew of symptoms. So I just would encourage, if anyone is someone who feels like they've like been tested for everything, can't figure out what's going on. Like if you have into like, I think what gets hard, where it's so common but yet so understudied and almost kind of stigmatized if it's something in your head even.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so just encouraging people that like to be an advocate to get tested for it. Like if you have any sort of, if there's something that no one can seem to figure out, I would
Mm-hmm.
highly recommend finding that Lyme literate doctor that can get you a test, to help figure it out.
So you can get a blood test and it will show Lyme.
It will. So if you go to kind of a traditional, someone who's not well versed in Lyme, you'd get a Western blot. You get so many false positives and false negatives. I
Oh,
wouldn't
that's
go
good
that
to know.
route. Yeah, so I
Okay.
would kind of avoid a Western blot. That's not going to really help you. But there's a company called IGeneX, And that is where you can get accurate Lyme testing. So I would definitely, I think it's just kind of worth knowing, and it can be a box to check. Hopefully you don't have it, but if
Yeah.
so, that's an accurate test to help figure it out.
Is there somebody at Nurture that does that?
Yeah, Rochelle can run them.
Oh, she does.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
So a little bit more about Nurture, everybody, because we referred to it a few times. I'm sorry, my tape is not, my setup isn't fully cooperating here. So Nurture, if you live in Denver, is on Spear and Federal. It's in the old St. Dominic's Church High School, which has been a lot of things since then. And George's office is upstairs, where a bunch of healthcare practitioners have spaces. And anything, we've got migraine specialists. There's nutritionists, functional medicine doctors, chiropractors. There's Reiki. There's a shaman. There's brain space, which is like it's a really cool business where this woman really works more with the power of the brain rather than the disease model of the brain. So really unique specialties in the areas of health and wellness. And it's really diverse. So you can kind of go in there and find something for everything. There's also like a hair salon, and there's a cafe, and there's exercise and fitness. I share a space up there and work with people too, although a lot of my work right now is remote, so I just do it from home. But you can meet with Georgia at Nurture, and I'm sure you do it. Can you do all telehealth with people right now, or do you definitely want them to meet with you in person initially? How does that work right now?
Yeah, we can do either. I mean, I have some people coming in, and we're safe distance and masks and sanitized, and then most people are virtual right now.
Yeah.
But I'm here every day, just working out of here, even if it's virtually. But that's also been great too, because I have a lot of clients that are out of state as well. So even if you're not in Colorado, I can still, help you, and we can talk. That's been a blessing of everything, is being able to reach people across the country. And I have two on my website where you can schedule a free 20-minute call if you're just curious of how I work with people, if we'd be a good fit, and you can just schedule that right on my website too.
Cool. So what is your website?
wbhnutritionco.com.
Okay. And then your Instagram is also same?
So my Instagram is just whole body healing, and it's WH, that kind of hole.
not the kind of holes that we have in our guts.
Yeah,
exactly. We don't want those.
Exactly.
Okay, so people can reach out to you, and they can do a 20-minute consultation, kind of start that way.
And if you go to my Instagram too, there's a link that will take you to that too. So,
okay.
And that's totally free.
I'll put your website link in my link tree too, so you can go to my bio right after you watch this and find that there. And do you have personal chefs and stuff like that too? If people want help with that, do you refer?
Yes, for sure. Okay. That's a great question. Yeah, because kind of like you're saying, like the kitchen part can be really daunting, and a lot of people I work with have some really specific food allergies. So I do have a few private chefs that I work pretty closely with, that they can take my nutrition recommendations and then just deliver and cook that for you. So that can really take some of the headache out of it too.
That would be huge. That's awesome. I know somebody in particular that I think is actually going to be seeing you this week.
Oh, great.
And I know that she's interested in maybe finding a personal chef. I'm just seeing if there's any questions here before we go. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, so please reach out to Georgia and do a consultation with her, just to kind of chit chat if you're curious at all. And if you're suffering, for sure, reach out. And, she obviously, she's living proof that this stuff works, which is really the most powerful testimonial. I'm living proof too that nutrition is hugely, hugely powerful. I didn't work with Georgia because I didn't know her back when I was really going through most of my stuff. But this is what I'm passionate about, connecting people with experts who can really empower you to make the changes that are going to affect you for the long haul. you know, and just kind of dispel those ideas that we have to accept being sick. You know, there's one of my favorite quotes is Krishnamurti. He's a yogi, and let's see, being well adjusted to a profoundly sick society is no measure of health. You know, and I really feel like there's kind of this baseline malaise in our country that it's just like people accept not feeling great because it's the norm. Yeah. And that's really like something that we need to totally dispel and, you know, break free of, because we can for sure feel great.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I think that would be like my final parting words of like,
yeah, please give us
just whether you work with me or not, or wherever you are in that wellness journey, of just knowing exactly what you're saying, that like healing is possible and that you can feel better, and that does not have to be your trajectory. So just because I think when you're sick, it just feels like that'll never happen, that like this is just the way it's going to be. So I just hope that people can find that hope that, you know, you can heal and you can get better.
And go to the gut.
Yeah.
You know, like 90% chance is your illness is from there.
Yep. 100%.
So why not just start there rather than, you know, going after the different symptoms? And no matter what, like, we should all just get our guts in great shape.
Yes.
You know, absolutely. So yeah, I'm going to be a huge proponent of people, you know, seeing you, reaching out to you. So the more and more clients that I get, I hope to send them your way.
Yes, likewise. They need everyone. Again, it's like it takes that village where, you know, what you do too with the body work and the emotional process is so needed too. So thank you for having me on.
Totally. I'm looking forward to sharing this. So anybody who, you know, this is obviously recording, so send it to anyone that you feel like could benefit from this information and possibly working with Georgia. So once again, your website?
wbhnutritionco.com. And my Instagram is Whole Body Healing, and you can find all of those links in my bio there as well.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Georgia. And
have a great weekend.
Visit us at Nurture 2 once it, you know, fully gets opened up again. So
yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, you have a great weekend too.
You
and
too.
Thanks for joining,
Take care.
everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, bye.